every day has to be Nutrition Day. Nutrition is not something, unfortunately, that I can do today and forget about tomorrow. It is the way we live our lives. We need to demystify nutrition. We need to make it very palpable. We need to make it very understandable.
Today we have with us Ms. Vinita Bali, Chairperson CII for the National Committee on Nutrition. Ms. Bali is a global business leader with extensive experience in leading large multinationals both in India and overseas. She has worked with eminent multinationals like the Coca-Cola Company and Cadbury in a variety of marketing, general management, and chief executive roles across geographies. She is also the former MD and CEO of Britannia Industries. With a passion for nutrition, she was also the chairman of the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition and was among 27 global leaders chosen by the UN in 2012 to improve maternal and child health as part of its Scaling Up Nutrition program. She has been recognized in many forums nationally and internationally and has won several awards for her contributions to both business and society. Ms. Bali, an absolute honor to have you among us today.
Thank you very much, Yamini. Look forward to our conversation.
Thank you, ma'am. So now to begin with, we just want to understand, you've had such an illustrious background working with some of the biggest names in the food and beverage industry. So how did your passion and foray into nutrition begin?
Actually, through food, and it was quite by chance that I got into nutrition and got interested in nutrition in a big way. It was when I came back to India in 2005 to work for Britannia. I'd been overseas for several years before that. And at that time, Britannia was one of the global suppliers for the World Food Program. And as you know, biscuit is an ideal carrier for anything which is, for calories as well as nutrition density. It's the first thing that actually gets distributed whenever there is, a natural calamity and people don't have access to food. So it really was that realization and recognition that if we can do something to help supply the world's needs for these calorie dense and nutrition dense products, why not think about embedding that social cause into our business model itself? Which actually led to, and I'm giving this very briefly, it led to a decision to fortify with micronutrients, which is vitamins and minerals, several of the products that Britannia was making at that time and continues to make. And I'm very happy to say that that entire strategy that we put together in 2008 has been continued, and there are more and more food companies that are looking at micronutrient fortification as one of the many ways to address undernutrition and malnutrition.
I think you're absolutely right, ma'am, because in India, we also struggle with access for nutritious foods. And food fortification is something that would make great strides in kind of tackling that issue at a national level. So that's great to hear, ma'am. And you've had such an extensive experience within the nutrition sector. So just want to understand from you, where does the nutrition agenda for India stand, and how have you seen things improve over the past few decades?
So Yamini, it's been a mixed bag, I would say. I think there was a stake in the ground, I would say, as recently as 2012. Well, even 2012 doesn't sound that recent any longer, when a big report called Hunger and Malnutrition, Hungama, was released.
Right.
And I remember in that year, in 2012, the then Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, in his speech from the Red Fort, had actually announced the creation of a nutrition mission.
Right.
And currently, we are seeing many things like POSHAN Abhiyan. September is sort of the POSHAN Ma, the nutrition month, and so on. I think putting things also in perspective, if we look at the general population in India, over the last decade, whilst we have decreased undernutrition from 26% to 17% amongst our population.
Right.
17% of a 1.3 billion population is still over 200 million people.
Right.
So in the absolute, India has more undernourished people than anywhere else in the world. Partly it is to do with the size of our population, but partly it's also to do with very large numbers. Take another indicator amongst children, which is always also used as a good indicator, and that is children under the age of 5.
Mm-hmm.
So according to the most recent National Family Health Survey, we still have 38% children under the age of 5 who are stunted, 36% who are underweight. Low birth weight still impacts between 23 to 24% of children born in India. In the Human Development Index, the latest one, India ranks 102 out of 117 countries. So if I were to take all of this, my conclusion is, yes, whilst we have made some progress, whether it is in reducing the total number in our population of undernutrition, reducing the total number of stunted children from 48% in 2005-06 to 38% in 2015-16, we still have a very huge problem, which is reflected in the overall index of 102 out of 117. Our rank, amongst 117 countries. And our score is something like 30.2% on that index, which is actually a low score.
Yeah.
So I think we have to move away from saying, this is nutrition day, this is nutrition month. Every day has to be nutrition day. Nutrition is not something, unfortunately, that I can do today and forget about tomorrow. It is the way we live our lives. It is what we do every day. It is about the availability, affordability, and accessibility of food to the entire population of India, not just to some people.
Absolutely, ma'am. I think that's a wonderful message that you've just told us. Now, on the agenda of nutrition, you mentioned about children under 5 really being physically stunted. The cause of that is often traced to maternal health, especially during pregnancy. And as someone who has an extensive background in maternal and child health, where do you think our priorities should be when it comes to maternal health in particular, and its kind of links to nutrition?
Yamini, I'm very glad you raised this question, because I think this is fundamental. The reason why we have low weight at birth is because the women who are giving birth to these children are themselves undernourished and malnourished. If you look at just one indicator, the prevalence of anemia,
right,
it is more than 50% in our entire population. And when you look at the vulnerable population, it's very significant. It could be as large as 70%. So if the mother is not healthy, there is no way that a child can be healthy.
Right.
And this goes back to not just what we do by way of food and other things, but I think it goes back and speaks a lot to our cultural norms.
Right.
How are infant girls treated compared with infant boys? What is the nutrition that is given to a mother after she's given birth to a daughter instead of a son?
Right.
All those things actually stack up against the women who have given birth to those children and against the girl child herself.
Right.
So when I'm a low birth weight infant, I happen to be a girl, I am not really either looked after well or fed properly. I grow up to be an underweight adolescent. Even today in India, in about 50% of the cases, women are married before the age of 18, which leads to multiple pregnancies when you're still young and your body is not fully developed to take care of yourself, let alone produce children. That is why we end up with this vicious cycle of, significantly high levels of maternal mortality, underweight children being born, adolescent girls and, nursing mothers not taken care of by the family, which is very, very cultural. And this vicious intergenerational cycle of nutrition is perpetrated. Yeah. So unless we step back and think about how we treat women, how we treat girls, is there enough food that is given to them? Are there other needs for nutrition and access to medical facilities taken care of? We are not going to solve the problem of undernutrition and malnutrition unless we look at it holistically, unless we look at it comprehensively, and unless all of us take some responsibility. It's not just the government's responsibility. Of course, there are policies and processes, etc., that the government has to do, and that is what they have to take accountability for. But there is also awareness and education, and therefore programs like Impact for Nutrition become so important and so critical that, frankly, it surprises me that even people who are otherwise well-informed and well-educated don't know very much about nutrition.
Absolutely.
We'll know in bits and pieces. We'll know that it's good to eat vegetables, but this whole comprehensive understanding.
Yeah.
People get up and exercise and so on, but even those people, their understanding of what is good nutrition, can be improved. So I'm saying we need to demystify nutrition. We need to make it very palpable. We need to make it very understandable. We need to tell people that, okay, if you do these 4 or 5 things and do them regularly, and make sure that there is access to nutritious food. Okay. Nutritious food which is natural, and nutritious food that has been enriched with vitamins and minerals. Right. Because we need both the macronutrients as well as the micronutrients.
I think you're absolutely right, ma'am, because, nutrition is such a penetrative problem. It's not a problem for the poor or the government. It's the problem of the rich, the poor, and it has to be all of our agendas to really bring about significant change. And now that we've, spoken about nutrition being a priority within communities and within homes, there is also an additional facet of nutrition which people really miss out on, which is this idea of workplace nutrition and what it means to have the right kind of nutrition in your workspace where you spend a majority of your day. So how and why, can you tell us, is workplace nutrition such an important priority?
Yamini, another excellent and very relevant question. As you yourself said, barring what COVID has done to all of us, and we're all working from home and so on and so forth. But, given that this is not going to last forever, and even though there may be more work from home, I think the world is going to eventually end up with some sort of a hybrid model.
Right.
Which, to my mind, says there will still be people who will spend, 8 hours of their waking hours at a place of work. Mm-hmm. And therefore, what we consume there, let's also not forget that most workplaces are very static. Most of us are, we're not working in factories and climbing stairs and climbing down and so on and so forth. We're sitting in front of a computer, stationary, on our chairs, etc.
Right.
So all the more reason that in addition to a lifestyle, in addition to knowledge about lifestyle, which is all about how much I exercise, how much I sleep, how much I eat, what do I eat, when do I eat, etc. All of these are critical and essential for good nutrition and good health. It's not just about eating the right food. It is also about exercise and so on. So the workplace, certainly, and I think we should look at the workplace extensively. It's not just an office. Right. It is a factory, whether it is a garment factory or a food factory or a steel factory. Most factories give their workers, in an 8-hour shift, you eat at least 2 meals a day if I'm a factory worker. Right. If I go to an office in 8 hours, I'm definitely having 1 meal and perhaps a snack and so on. So the workplace becomes very important in 2 or 3 ways. One is, can companies simply look at the menus that are being served in the factory or in the office and say, how can we make these menus both tasty as well as more healthy? We've got incredible chefs who are willing to give their time. And one of the initiatives that we had taken as part of Impact for Nutrition, working with several organizations, the UNICEF, the CII National Committee on Nutrition, was to design 30 different menus for north, south, east, west palates and say, these are nutritionally balanced meals. So at least the meals that people are eating in the workplace are nutritionally balanced. The second thing is, I think the workplace is an incredible, it's an incredible resource for educating employees on nutrition and the significance of nutrition. Again, another initiative that was very well developed as part of Impact for Nutrition, which is you have a kiosk, you have all kinds of information available. If all the information is not available there, you have access to where you can get that information because you've got a captive audience. You've got an audience which is there every day. I think we also have to get people interested in nutrition. You know, nobody wakes up saying, I'm really going to eat unhealthy today and I want to be unhealthy. Most of us wake up. In fact, everybody wakes up saying, you know, let this be a good, healthy day for me. What do I have to do to make that a good, healthy day for me also becomes very important.
I think you make a great point, ma'am, because the workplace can be such an essential point of dissemination of important nutrition practices and information. So now, you know, we've discussed profound ideas about nutrition being all of our priorities, but the actual truth is that for a long time, it has been something that the public sector has kind of single-handedly spearheaded with little intervention from the private sector in a few recent years. So how best do you think we can engage the private sector players to really kind of support and augment the efforts that the government is already undertaking?
So I think there are, again, 2 or 3 different ways of thinking about it.
Right.
One is every player, public or private sector, what we have just discussed, whether I am a PSU, whether I'm the Indian Oil Corporation or I am an MSME which has a factory which has only 50 people working in it. I think if we make this whole idea of workplace nutrition something that we speak to industry about, and there are various industry forums. There is CII, there is ASSOCHAM, there is FICCI, there are MSME organizations and so on. I think nutrition has to get into the public narrative in a very simple way. It can't be, and it can't be some simple, some advertising which says, I don't want to berate anything that is being done, but some very well-known actor who comes and says that nutrition is very important in the first 1,000 days. So you've told me that it is important, but you haven't told me what I have to do. So the communication has to educate me. It is not just about telling me that nutrition is important. I know that. Tell me, what can I do in my life to change that? So I think educational institutions, private sector, public sector, banks, service industries, everybody can actually look at nutrition as something which is an essential communication to be done as part of the many communications that happen in organizations.
With this, ma'am, we are at the end of our interview. Thank you so much for being a part of this. It was an absolutely insightful conversation, hearing from a global leader such as yourself. And we look forward to seeing everything that you get up to in the area of workplace nutrition.
Thank you very much. And I wish you all the best with your initiatives. As I said, all of us have to be part of the solution.
You're absolutely right, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.